Using the Dimension Style Manager dialog box, you can edit the various parameters related with the elements in a dimension. So let's see that. Now I'll click on this arrow in the Dimensions panel to get the Dimension Style Manager dialog box, or else you can type the letter D at the command prompt to get the same interface. Over here, we have the dimension styles displayed. The current style is ISO 25. The various parameters related with the various elements in a dimension, such as dimension line, extension line, etc., are stored in this particular style. You can modify any parameters at any point of time by clicking on the Modify button. We have already modified the scale of the dimensions when we have started dimensioning this figure. So I'll click on the Modify button. Here you will see a number of tabs. Each tab is meant to change the parameters related with a particular element in a dimension. For example, if you want to change the dimension line related parameters, click on Lines tab, and here you can change the color, line type, line weight of a dimension line. For example, if I change the color of dimension line to say green, you will see a little preview over here which will reflect instantly the changes performed in this dialog box. Now I'll bring it back to the default color. And now you can extend the dimension lines beyond the tick marks. We'll talk about tick marks after some time. Then baseline spacing is the gap or spacing between the adjacent line in the baseline dimensions. Then you have a suppress dimension line 1 and 2 options will let you suppress the dimension lines. We have extension lines option which will let you control the parameters such as the color of an extension line. Then you can assign a particular line type for the extension line 1 and 2. This is the first and second extension line. Then you can assign a line weight for the extension line, which is rarely done. Then you can suppress the extension line 1. When you click here, you can see that the first extension line disappear, and you can also suppress the second extension lines. Then we have an option called Extend Beyond Dimension Line. This is nothing but an extension of the extension line beyond the dimension line. Here present value is 2.5. I'll bring it to 7 and let's see the change. Now you can see that this extension got further extended. I'll bring it back to 1.25. Now here there is an offset from origin. This parameter will let you change the offset or gap between the geometry and the start point of the extension line. This gap is hardly visible now. If you give a higher value, for example 2, and enter, now you will see the gap getting widened. I'll bring it back to the default. Now you can give a fixed length for the extension lines. When you click on that, extension line will have a fixed length, and that length can be controlled here. Now we come to the symbols and arrows. This tab will let you change the various parameters related with the arrowheads. You can have a separate arrowhead for the first and second arrows. For example, for the first arrow, if you want, you can make it a dot, but the moment you change the first arrow, that change will get also reflected for the second arrow. But if you want, you can have a separate arrowheads for the second. I'll take say open 30, this particular arrowhead. So you have 2 separate arrows. Okay, but that is rarely used. Then you can have a separate arrow for the leader dimensions. Okay, I'll bring it to say architectural tick. Architectural tick marks are nothing but oblique strokes which are generally used in civil and architectural drawings. Then arrowhead size can be controlled here. You can mark the center point of a circle using a small tick mark with a specified size which is given here. Then you can also go for a line instead of a tick mark to indicate the center of a circle. Let's see that. I'll close it. Now you will see the changes getting updated. Now instead of arrows, you have architectural tick marks. Let's perform a center dimension to indicate the center of this particular circle. For example, in the dimensions panel, you have a flyout. When you just click here, you will get a center option. Click on center mark and just click on that. Now you have a line instead of a tick mark. Similarly, this center can also be indicated using the same option. So I'll go for center and click on the center of this arc. Now you have got lines instead. In the dimensions, left arrowhead is a tick mark and the right arrow is an open arrow, because that is how it is selected in the Dimension Style Manager. When you just go to modify, you can see that the first one is architectural tick and the second one is an open arrow. I'll change the second one to an architectural tick. Now we have a break option which will let you create a break in dimensions when 2 dimensions overlap. We'll see that. I'll create another cross dimension here just to show as an example. Now you can see that these 2 dimensions are crossing each other. I would like to introduce a break at this point. So for that, you can just click on the break option in the dimensions panel, and it will ask you to select a dimension to add or remove a break. I'll just click on this dimension. So it will get broken and just give an enter. So you will see a gap appearing here. And the size of this break is specified over here. These are all some parameters related with arc dimensions. Over here we have text related parameters that can be changed. We can change the style of a text, color, the fill color, the text height. You can draw a frame around a text if you want. Now under text placement we have vertical option. The text which are written vertical will be centered if you select centered here. Now you can see that this text is a vertical text and it is centered with respect to the dimension line. And similarly, the horizontal placement can be centered or at the extension line 1, means it will be taken towards the extension line 1. At extension line 2, when you select, it will be taken more towards extension line 2. Over the extension line 1 means it will be written like this, over the extension line 1. And it can also be written over the extension line 2, which can be very well used if the situation demands it. I'll make it centered. Then view direction can be from left to right or from right to left. It can be altered. The left to right is always better. Then offset from the dimension line is the offset of the text with respect to the dimension line. That is applicable when the text is written above the dimension line. But presently the text is written centered. Then text alignment can be horizontal. When you select horizontal, the text will always remain horizontal irrespective of the orientation of the dimension line. Now you can see that this is an inclined dimension and the text is written inclined. This is a vertical dimension and the text is written vertical. But if you select horizontal, all text will be written horizontal irrespective of the inclination of the dimension line. Then ISO standard, when you select, it will be written like this. That means all the linear dimensions will be like this and the radial dimension will remain horizontal. I'll go for align with the dimension line, which is the default. Now I'll click on the fit tab. These options are meant for how the dimension is to be written on a specified area. And the software makes the best suitable assumptions to create a dimension. So you don't have to do anything here. But if you click on arrows, the arrows will be given priority and the text will be written outside. If you click on text, the software prioritizes the text and the rest of the dimension elements will be written outside the extension lines. If you click on both text and arrows, these two objects will be given priority. So the software makes best suitable assumptions here. That is a default. The text placement can be beside the dimension line, over the dimension line with leader, and over the dimension line without leader is the best option which is selected. We have seen the scaling method, and use overall scale factor is given as 0.05, and depending upon the scale given here, your dimension will get scaled automatically. The fine tuning section can also be left at the default. You can change the primary units from decimal to any other units. The precision can be set here. The comma is the default decimal separator. If you want to make it a dot or a period, you can click on period. Round off can be given. You can round off your dimension to any nearest integer. You can give a suffix and prefix here. For example, if I give a suffix of cm for centimeters, along with all dimensions, you will see this particular suffix appearing. Similarly, you can also give a prefix. Once you specify scale factor here, all the linear measurements will get multiplied with the scale factor, which is generally used for conversions. For example, if you want to convert your inch to centimeters, you can provide the scale factor as 2.54. Leading and trailing zero suppression can be specified here. The various unit related settings for angular dimension can be specified here, from unit format to precision to leading and trailing zero suppression. And you have an alternate units tab with which you can specify an alternate unit along with the primary unit, which is also very rarely done, and you have all the parameters related with the alternate unit. So at a time you will be able to dimension in 2 units. The next tab is the tolerance tab. So I'll just click on the tolerance tab, and here you will see the various options to control the tolerances. What exactly is a tolerance? See, it is not possible to manufacture a particular component to the precise dimensions. So we allow a permissible variation, which is called a tolerance. Tolerance is generally used in mechanical drawings. So I'll just select the tolerance method. We have various methods of tolerances. One is called the symmetrical tolerance. When the tolerance is none, you cannot specify the tolerance and these options are disabled. When you go for symmetrical, upper value and lower value will remain the same. That means if I give a value of say 0.02, that value will be taken as the positive as well as the negative tolerance. Now I'll just give OK and I'll give close to see the changes. Now all the dimensions will carry a tolerance value along with it. Now I'll give enter to go into the same dialog. If you go for deviational tolerance, you can have separate values for the positive and negative tolerance. For the upper, I'll specify a value of 0.01, and for the lower, it is the same value. Now when you update the display, you can see that you have 2 tolerance values. I'll just give enter to go back to the same dialog box and I'll modify it. Now here you can specify a limit. Tolerance can also be specified in terms of limits. So the tolerance values will be computed upon the actual dimension and you will get the result. For example, when you specify it as limits, the upper limit will be written as 1.48 and the lower limit will be 1.45. That means the positive tolerance will be added to the actual dimension, negative tolerance will be subtracted from the actual value and the result will be written. And you can also specify basic tolerancing, in which the actual dimension will be surrounded with a rectangle to give emphasis on it. That means under no circumstances the tolerance is permitted and this particular component should be manufactured to the precise dimensions. Then the position of the tolerance can be adjusted. That means if I go for deviational tolerance, if I go for bottom, the vertical position of the tolerance can be bottom. That means the actual dimension is written below. You can see that here. And if it is middle, means actual dimension will be written at the middle position. If I take top, the actual dimension will be taken to the top. It's always better to keep it in the middle. Then you can also control the height of the tolerance dimension. Presently it is 1. I can bring it down to 0.5 for example. You can see that the height of the tolerance text is half the height of the actual dimension. So these are the various parameters to control tolerances. I'll bring it back to none and I'll close it. Next we will see the procedure to create a substyle. A substyle is defined as a style within a style. Let's create one substyle. I'll just go to the Dimension Style Manager dialog box. ISO 25 is the current style. I'll click on New to define a new style. You can create a new style from ISO 25. So you will see copy of ISO 25 here. Then you can choose to what sort of dimensions the substyle should be applicable. I want to create a substyle for the angular dimension. So just click on angular dimension and continue. Instead of architectural tick marks, I want to use arrows for angular dimension. So you can specify close filled arrows here. Now I also want to give a particular color for the dimension line for the angular dimension. So I'll choose yellow color and I will give a color for the dimension text. So just click on this particular color. You can see a little preview here and just give OK and close. So these changes will be applicable only for the angular dimensions. And let's go to the Style Manager dialog box and see the substyle. So you can see Angular coming under ISO 25 because it's a substyle. Now I'll create one more substyle, but it is applicable for the radius dimensions. So I'll click on radius dimension and click on continue. I'll go to symbols and arrows. I'll specify a particular arrowhead. Let the arrowhead be the small dot for the radius dimension and I'll give a particular color for the dimension line. Let it be the green color, for example. Now for the text I'll specify a particular color. Let it be the cyan color. Now you can see the preview here and just give OK and close. And that is applicable only for the radius dimension. So that is a concept of a substyle. Next we will see the concept of style overrides in dimension. I'll explain it with a simple example. Suppose I want to specify a tolerance only for this particular dimension and I don't want the same tolerance values to be applied on all the dimensions. In that case, I can just click on the Dimension Style Manager and I can click on the override button. So override is nothing but a changed version of an existing style. And an override is always created from an existing style. So you can just specify the changes here. Now I want to give a different tolerance value for that particular dimension. So you can just specify a deviational tolerance and I'll give OK. And I'll give close here. Now this dimension should be taken to the style override. So for that you can use the update command. Just click on this button or else you can type the letter UP for update and you just click on that. Now only this dimension displays the style override. Likewise, you can incorporate specific changes for individual dimensions using style overrides. Now let's go back to the Style Manager. Now here is just like a substyle, the style override is also displayed under ISO 25 style. Now when I right click over here, I'll get options like rename to save it as a separate style. Then I can delete to get rid of it, or I can save to the current style. So when I click on save to current style, this change will be applicable to the current style. And when you close it, the changes will be reflected on all the dimensions. So I'll just undo this. I don't want to do that. We can also create a dimension style from an existing style. Once you create such a style, and if you set that as a current style, all the subsequent dimensions will appear in that style. You can also change the style of an existing dimension into the style which you create. So let's see that. I'll click on the Dimension Style Manager. I'll delete the style override. So right click and delete. I'll give yes. Now ISO 25 is the current style. I'll click on New and it will ask you for a style name. I'll call it as My Style. You can give any suitable name. Then you should specify from which style you want to start with. I want to start with ISO 25 style. Then if you want, you can make it annotative. We'll talk about that later. Then I'll click on Continue. Then you can specify the various parameters for the style. So I'll click on Symbols and Arrows and I'll choose this particular arrowhead, this dot arrowhead for the current style. And I'll go to text and I'll change the color of the text to this magenta color. These are the two change in parameters which I specify for my new style. And I'll give OK. So you will see my style as a new style appearing here. I'll give close to exit this dialog box. Now I'll create a new dimension using the dimension command. I'll click on this object. Now you can see that this dimension is written in the new style. And hence, if you set a particular style as a current style, all the subsequent dimensions will be written in that style. Using this flyout menu, it will be easy for you to set any existing style as a current style. Now from here, it's clear that my style is a current style. If you want to make a standard as a current style, you can do that. You can also change the style of an existing dimension. And this particular dimension is done in ISO 25 style. And if you want to change its style, all you have to do is just select the dimension. Now the style in which this particular dimension is created is displayed here. Now we can just select the new style. Now the style of this dimension will get changed. You can also do that by using the Properties panel. I'll just select the dimension and press Ctrl 1 to get it. In the miscellaneous section, you have the style option. You can select any desired style from standard to my style to ISO 25. And using this Properties panel, you can change most of the parameters which you have changed using the Dimension Style Manager. And if you want, you can change the arrowhead to right angle. So it got changed. Likewise, you can just go through the parameters and you can change all these parameters using the single interface. So that is how you create a style, make that as a current style, and change the style of an existing dimension from one style to another. So this is how you perform different types of dimensions in AutoCAD 2016 using a single dimension command. But I also like to remind you that if you're using older releases of AutoCAD, you will come across with various options like linear, aligned, angular, arc length, etc. So in 2016, these options are incorporated as a pop-up menu. So you can just go through it and try it on your own. You can also add a jog onto the existing dimension using add or remove jog line option here. So just click on this button and you can just select the dimension wherein you want to add the jog line. Just select it. Then it will ask you to select the location. Suppose if I want a jog here, just click on that. So it automatically adds a jog at this location. The size of this jog can be controlled in the Dimension Style Manager. I'll activate the current style and I'll go to Modify. The present jog height factor is 1.5. I'll make it into 3 and I'll give OK and I'll close it. Now you can see that the existing jog line is automatically updated because it was performed on the dimension style. Now I'll just undo this change. Next we will see the procedure to create multi-leaders in AutoCAD. I'll create a multi-leader here. So I'll grip it to change the location of this dimension from here to here. Next I'll click on multi-leader and I'll start my multi-leader from this nearest point. Then I'll pick a point here. Then I'll zoom out. Now you can see that the text size is large. I'll write the text as whole 0.75 dia. Then I'll just close the text editor. Now you have a larger text here. We have to reduce the size of this text. For that, I'll click on Multi-Leader Style Manager, or you can type the letter MLS. So I'll just click over here to get this, and you will see a symbol of a leader. Now I'll click on Modify, and here in the Leader and Structure tab, you have a Specify Scale option. I'll bring it down to 0.05, which was the original scale of the dimensions. And I'll give OK and close. Now the text is written in the required size. Now you can incorporate any editing on the multi-leader. I'll just double click to change the text. Instead of this dia, I would like to insert a symbol. So I'll just keep my cursor here and I'll go to symbol and I'll incorporate a diameter symbol there. And you can just close the text editor. And you can add any number of leaders by clicking on the add leader option and just select the leader and you can add any number of leaders. I'll add one here, then one more. These are all not holes, but to show an example, I'm just adding these leaders. You can remove one or more leaders simply by selecting the leader, then you just right click the mouse. Here you have an option called Remove Leader. Now just click on Remove Leader and you select the leader to be removed. You can just click on that and you can get rid of those leaders. Next, I'll add one more leader here. So I'll go to multi-leader, pick the point here. The next point is this, and I'll write a text. Let it be, say, a front elevation. Now, these two texts are in two alignments. If you want to align two or more leaders, you have an align option here. So just click on the align option. Then it will ask you to select the multi-leader first. Then just give an enter. Then you are asked to select the multi-leader to align to. Now I want this particular leader to align with this one. So now you can click this. Next you can just turn on the ortho mode and you can just pick a point over here and you can see that these two leaders are vertically aligned. We have already discussed text styles and dimension styles. We also have multi-leader styles in AutoCAD. So next we will create a multi-leader style. So I'll just click on multi-leader style launcher, or you can give MLS command. Then I'll click on new button. Here I'll give a name for my new style. I'll call it as my style and continue. And here you can define the various parameters related with that style. So in the leader format tab, I want the type to be a spline. Then I want to give a color for the leader. So you can see the preview here. And I don't want to change the line type or line weight. I want to change the leader arrowhead to a dot. I'm not going to make any change on the leader structure, but I'll change the content. Multi-leader type to an M text to a block. So I'll click on the block option. Under the block option section, I'll go to source block and I'll choose a circle as a source block. You can see the preview here. And if you want, you can scale it. I don't want to scale that block. I want to retain the original scale. And I want to change the color to say red. Now I'll just give OK. So this is my style. So I'll create the next multi-leader in that style. So I'll click on multi-leader and I'll pick the start point here. I'll turn the ortho mode off and I'll pick a point over here. Then I'll get an edit attribute dialog. Here I can give the tag number as 1 and I'll give OK. So you can see the new leader with the new style. I'll create one more multi-leader in the new style and I'll pick the start point here and the next point and I'll give the tag number as 2. It is nothing but an attributed block. One more here and I'll give a tag number of 3. Now we have 3 multi-leaders created in the new style. We can see too much of a clutter in this area. You can reduce this clutter by collecting the leaders. So you can click on collect multi-leader command and you can select the multi-leaders to be collected. So all these 3 leaders will get replaced with a single leader and you will see the text written this way in the same order. So that's the use of collect leader option in the leaders panel. Now we have covered the concept and application of dimensions in AutoCAD. I have provided additional problems to work on along with this video. The more you practice, you will be more confident in dimensioning different two-dimensional drawings. Even the knowledge in dimensioning in 2 dimension is highly essential to perform dimension in 3D. So make a consistent practice to master this topic.